You're listening to Fish Out of Water, the podcast where feeling out of place becomes the start of something new. Dive in with us. Let's explore stories, insights, and real conversations that help you swim forward with purpose.
Welcome to episode 2 of Fish Out of Water with Brett and Lisa at Empower You Coaching. We don't even talk about our company name very much, right, Brett?
No, we haven't. And I
hardly
think
do.
but honestly, I think that's a little bit on purpose in that we're trying to hold space. We're trying to hold a conversation that is for everybody,
Absolutely.
not just for people that are part of our clients or part of our community. We wanted to build something that served everybody.
Absolutely. We're still going to mention it every now and then, though.
We're
Something that we're proud of, right?
We're definitely proud of it. I'm super excited about all of the things that we do and are doing. And really trying to help people have a genuine understanding of both where they fit and how they operate in their flow state or in their absolute strengths. Confidently is the goal.
And so today we start that conversation as we dive into the 4 rise styles or temperaments. And as Brett just said, talking about the different flow states rather than the containers or the boxes, and identifying them for ourselves as we start to move deeper into understanding these different styles, so that the more we understand ourselves, the more that we understand some of the other temperaments, we start to have opportunities to move forward. So that's kind of a high level overview of what we're doing today. We want to really focus on this awareness of our autonomic approach, shedding the internal and external expectations to showing up authentically like ourselves, right? So, Brett, you started studying DISC a long time ago. I remember this was one of the first things that you and I really connected on, because you were so excited to get me to do this DISC assessment. You want to take us on that little story?
Yeah, I think that. So in 1992 is when I get first introduced, when I was away on a retreat with a bunch of high school kids. I was a youth sponsor, just trying to be there, hold space for youth as they're developing into their collegiate context. And so I had never heard of anything like this before. And when I saw this at first, I think for me, there was an immediate green light for how I wanted to be in space, how I wanted to operate. And I was like, wait, there's permission for me to be this way? You mean I'm not broken because I want to be the loudest person in the room? In a positive way. Now, I had been doing it in a negative way. And I mean, I had a context where I was called not very nice names because I could come in presuming that I knew the answer as I was wrestling with internal truth. I could be totally wrong, but simultaneously believe that I was absolutely correct and right.
And how many of us do that?
Ooh,
of course, I don't do that. Come on now.
And so, but as I began to wrestle with this approach, it gave me a structure to see other people, not only understanding myself, but I was able to go, I wonder if that person is operating in this style. And that gave me a genuine framework in how I chose my wife. And we joke about it all the time. Well, I do. She doesn't particularly like this. But, when we first met, I had women that I liked, and I had them all do this assessment because I wanted to make sure that I had somebody that complemented me. And so I chose the relationship I was going to pursue based on who was going to support my style in its execution. Now, failed to a certain degree, not the marriage, but the intention of what I was trying to accomplish turned out to be exactly what I needed, but not what I thought I wanted. And so hopefully by the end of this season, I can maybe share a little bit more of those specifics, but I don't want to get us off track today. And so the goal of unpacking our style
Mhm.
is to genuinely understand what is our primary expression, how are we motivated, and what is the fear context? What is it that when you're living autonomically, meaning you are not in control mentally, like not in control intentionally,
Mhm.
you then are operating out of the fear response. You are afraid that something's going to happen. So then you behave in a way that tries to
Yeah.
address the fear first.
It's survival mode rather than a flourish mode.
Exactly. I love that. I love that idea. And so
Okay, I
when
got to
we
write
talk
that down.
about, yes, please write that down because I'm going to get so dialed in, I'm going to forget that one. And so the idea is finding the healthiest pathway starts with motivation
Yeah.
versus the unsettlement of who we are is starting with our fear. And we want to bring this into continuity. And so when we look at each of the styles, so a reminder, so the rise, R is reflective, I is intentional, S is supportive, and the E is empowerment or
Hmm.
empowering. And so our reflective style is showing up in a flow state that operates according to analytical clarity and careful pacing. And that's something that's super interesting, not something that I operate in well. I'm a let's go, full board, 100% all in. And I need people who can pull back those reins. And Lisa, you've been that very presence for me at many times in my life, kind of pulling me back a little bit. In that, if anyone hasn't recognized already, I sit in that empowerment. That's kind of where I am. And I need people in my life that are
Hmm.
not necessarily criticizing me, but are
Yeah.
saying, Brett, can we slow down for a second? That careful pacing.
Yeah.
And
It was
so,
until you just said it, even I do recall several times where I was like, whoa there, horsey. Let's just reflect a little bit more here.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so then
no.
our intentional style
Hmm.
is flowing according to the energy and the connection in the room. They're driven solely and primarily by relationships. And as the traditional extrovert definition, although that doesn't necessarily operate the same way as we originally thought, this person is finding and seeking connection with other people. And that's what's driving everything forward. If there's not a connection, boop, move on. Hey, if there is a connection, boop, move on. It is almost indifference, but it is this passionate pouring into the flow state with other people, building
Hmm.
those bridges and connections to one another.
Hmm.
Where their primary fear is being misunderstood, potentially being criticized, or losing that influence.
And nobody likes to be misunderstood or criticized, but let's be clear here that this is a core thing that like matters to them in every moment to moment.
And so then what happens with the intentional flow state, if they're operating out of their fear, they're not being authentic in how they connect to the people
Hmm.
because they're pulling back. So that fear or that mistrust that's operating is not going to the excitement and passion of who they are may not exist until there's the safety and security we talked about throughout several episodes. These are these core driven processes where we're either gripped by fear or we're navigating through the motivation of kind of our healthiest version of ourselves.
Right. And so the next one being intentional,
So yes,
or
that
sorry,
we've just unpacked intentional.
supportive.
Yeah. And so the supportive flow is operating according to the steadiness and not to play on words, but the supportive presence.
Hmm.
The steadiness individual is really bringing the wholeness to the table. They're bringing the space and the environment and the people together to create this. I'm not going to rock the boat. I don't want the boat to be rocked. And so that then also becomes the fear and the motivation.
Yeah.
Not wanting the boat to be rocked is I need to stabilize. Oh my goodness, don't do it. Oh,
Can't,
and we become
yeah.
they
I'm a
become
supportive. Yeah. So my
yeah,
my thing is like, can't we all just get along? Um, that is the in the back of my mind, always trying to maintain that balance of like, okay, we don't all like each other, but can we just get along so that we can make this collaboration or whatever it is work? That's
yes.
a big
Yeah.
fear factor in the back of my head that I have to constantly manage.
That and I think one of my strengths has become relational tension isn't negative tension.
Hmm.
In that sometimes we do need to wrestle with our identity in the midst of others,
Absolutely.
also by ourselves.
Yeah,
And so the challenge of overcoming your fear to move towards motivation is not all relational tension is negative.
correct. And it's learning to see and read when one or the other is happening, the negative versus the opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm. And the unexpected transition or change.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so then in my wheelhouse, we kind of sitting in, we've got this empowered flow as we're moving towards completion. The results driven, the outcome oriented, but in our context of Rise, this individual is is pulling all of the threads together to to build the community.
Mhm.
That's where I kind of sit in this. And there's still some wrestling to do there in that description, but the fear of being slowed down and my worst overlooked.
Mhm.
When I have a clear skill or I have something I clearly bring to the table and somebody else gets picked to do the thing that may or may not have been the best outcome, but there was something else there.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
an opportunity for learning a little bit of humility because it's okay to be right, but be wrong in the attitude, right? So
Yeah.
we'll dig
And
into that.
oh my goodness, there's that's like a separate rabbit hole that we'll be
Yes.
driving right down into. And
Yes.
so when we understand this autonomic fear being driven by safety and security, this
Hmm.
is where we begin to recognize the patterns of the unsupported part of who we are to how are we building the communal experience.
Hmm.
And I think you could from episode 1 you could take communal experience and be plurality. We're
Hmm.
looking for there to be many in a space that are operating towards the singular outcome.
Yeah.
Now, that outcome, I have at least seven different outcomes on goal every day of my life. So, how am I connecting to all of these different communities? I'm an extrovert. I drive towards that. Where my wife is more of an introvert. She wants
Hmm.
to pull back a little bit and be in more of a secured relationship. And again, story time will come at the right time. And Lisa, I guess as you and I have been unpacking this for almost as long as I've been doing this,
Yeah.
where I love the idea of questions. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that I need or should want an answer per se, because I need to drive towards the next question. That maybe is an internal thing for me. Maybe you can speak to that about me. But
Well, it comes with our coaching, our desire to work with folks, and that's the coach in us speaking the questions because we're the ones asking helping people to ask the questions to help them move forward, right? So I think that's a natural thing for both you and I, and any good, decent coach out there asking those questions of that are going to help people get to that next step. And so we have even in the things that we're going to be talking about with regards to reach and rise, specifically rise over the next few episodes, there's some things that we want folks to be able to walk away with, or at least have enough understanding that they can start to ask these questions of themselves. And so, one of the questions that I think is really important is, does confidence look the same for everyone? Because based on just the few lines that we went through for each of the core temperaments, my immediate thing is no, confidence does not look the same. We don't all show up the same way. Your empowered person is going to come in and this is what we're doing, voice is loud and sure. Whereas the intentional person is like, guys, this is a great idea. Let's do it. They're the galvanizers, if you will, of the group. And then you have your reflective who might sit there and go, yeah, I could see this. This seems to line up. They're going to be very analytical that way, breaking it down like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And then you have the supporters like, they're coming in and really, I can be in line with this. I can help in this way and whatever. It looks really different for everybody. So I'm excited as we go forward into addressing this question of confidence at the different temperaments and how to recognize that in other temperaments as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's actually the second part of it, is that understanding your core versus others helps to provide guidance and direction for how we build our personal confidence. And the question being is, how am I showing up? Am I
Mm-hmm.
showing up to match the pace of others, or am I learning to flow in my own way that comes
Mm-hmm.
alongside others, despite what their temperament is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the confidence of being who you are in that. So I think the next part that we have is we want to really talk about that imposed performance versus authentic performance in the sense of the core temperaments. Um,
I want to revisit something just really quick
sure,
so that
sure, sure.
we have a really healthy or holistic view as we're moving
Hmm.
forward. Because
Hmm.
I think that within the traditional roles within whether it's management or productivity or project execution, I think that what tends to still happen is the louder voices are the automatic leaders, not
Yeah,
autonomic. Hear
yeah,
my word. These
right.
become the people who are then cued for leadership,
Hmm.
but often don't necessarily have the reflective tools in place
Hmm.
to lead with the team or communal experience. Whereas the people who have the very reflective, not to play on our words, the reflective or supportive styles don't necessarily have a loud enough voice to then push the team forward to the goal line. So, what we're really thinking is, and you may be in a space that your group, your team, your company knows these terminologies but has no idea how to get there.
Hmm.
And so when we unpack this imposed versus authentic performance, we're looking to lead from pressure to permission.
Hmm.
It isn't about us coming and saying, "But I am." It's about, "Hey, I noticed this in you and I really like that. This is me."
Hmm.
It's the transactional in a healthy way, hopefully, but
Hmm.
it's the invitation to come. I
hmm
see you as X,
hmm
and I like that about you. I don't like this part, but I like that about you because you're doing something I don't do very well.
hmm Yeah, we've talked about moving from operating from a place of fear to a place of strength, looking at our strengths and building on those strengths. And so I think to the last thing, part of what you were just saying is that kind of sums it up, is that we're really trying to um, communicate and give examples going forward of recognizing those areas of fear so
Mm-hmm.
that we can stop looking at not so much stop looking at the fears, but reframe everything so that we're operating from a place of strength, a place of confidence, a place of wholeness,
Hmm.
regardless of who you're dealing with, regardless of what the situation is, so that we can begin to respond
Yeah.
rather than react from those autonomic places.
Yeah, because if we're sitting in a space of fear, our response will naturally be protection
Yeah,
because safety and security isn't being addressed. So
right.
now I have to protect myself. I have to protect my heart, my mind, and I think when we're talking about community, this is the very dangerous place to be.
Hmm.
And it's usually the very next thing is exiting said community the moment that you're not really feeling like you've got. And so now all of a sudden you're hopping to the next community, trying to find the very same thing, but you're starting over at the beginning.
Hmm.
And we're not finding the rooting. We're not finding how is it do I rise? How is it do I rise, invite, reach towards other people to make sure that this experience is going to be a blessing to me, a blessing to others, holistic and holistic. Um, yeah.
Sorry. I'm having a bit of an itchy ear and it's very distracting. I apologize. Um, it's I'm really holding back because there's things that I'm ready to dive into today that we're leaving for the next few episodes. So I'm really trying to manage myself, going off course. So please help me stay on topic here, Brett, today. Um, we have this idea, this we have internal cues. I don't know that we've
Mhm.
talked very specifically about this
I
in
don't think
in
we've
detail.
connected. I don't think we've connected the phrasing, but those
Right.
internal cues are our motivation, the fear, kind of what is driving our personhood, what is driving
Yeah.
the identity that we think we see, going back to our Disney princess in the mirror, versus the kind of how am I operating?
And even just to add to those internal cues, like what's my body saying in this moment? Am I
Mm,
tense? Am I relaxed? Am I excited? Because recognizing those, how your body functions in situations is more information to help you to respond in a healthy manner, in a way that is going to move you forward, whether with that other person or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish forward. I mean,
hmm.
we can take it from so many different ways, but it's
Yeah.
very important that we are mindful in moments of extremes, if you will. Not that we
Hmm.
shouldn't be when it's not extreme, but when it is extremes, it takes us up from our baseline, right?
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
extreme highs and our extreme lows. Like, how are we operating in those moments? Because those are the times where we can totally miss the boat on how we communicate with others.
Hmm.
Because you can be on a high and super excited and have all this positive energy, and something comes out that just rubs someone the wrong way because you did not have them in mind in your reaction, we'll call it,
Hmm.
in the moment, because you didn't stop to think about what you were saying or how things were being portrayed in that moment. And then vice versa. Also, if you're super low, what energy are you bringing to the room? How are you supporting? And this has nothing to do with whether you're a supportive temperament. This is just about being a person that cares about others in the room. How is how are you still showing up with that low energy? It's okay to have low energy. We've talked about this before. We don't have to be
Hmm.
high all the time. We don't have to be at our baseline all the time. We're going to have low moments. We're working through things, or you get some bad news, whatever. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to show up. Um, Even if we need the help, if we're not coming in a place of vulnerability, or um, asking for those safe spaces. That's part of the communication uh, anyways, I digress because we could go down another rabbit hole here. But I
Again,
think you get what I'm
we're
saying,
bouncing all
right?
over the place. I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I think for the listeners process, the high and the low energy really is about, can I share that I have a low energy? I woke up this morning at like 4:30 with a headache. I'm like, oh no, this is going to get bad. And I should have gotten up and had some Tylenol or something, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I went
Mm-hmm.
back to sleep. I went back to bed. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I got a really, really bad headache now. And so then I had to cultivate my whole morning routine shifted so that I could just go, I need to deal with this so that I could be here today to
Mm-hmm.
bring this. And so I
Right.
think that what I would love for the listener to have an opportunity to consider is, how are we able to articulate the who we are at its core and essential? This isn't
Mm-hmm.
the answer. This is
Mm-hmm.
the beginning of the journey.
Right.
And I think that first and foremost, if you're here in the midst of season 2 as our episodes are being released, if you go to our website, empoweryoucoaching.ca, there'll be a link in the show notes, and you want to consider doing the rise or the reach assessment, and you put in the code winter 2026, there'll be a discount for you to be able to take this assessment, and we'll be able to provide you feedback on kind of how that is all kind of fitting together, which hopefully gives you the presence of mind or the presence of person to go, yeah, that is where I want to, or this is how I'm operating in my strength. So now we start to have some tools to be able to articulate, this is my process. And we don't, if we can get to the place where we're able to identify ourselves while simultaneously recognizing others, these are the essential building blocks of what it means to be in community.
Yeah.
It doesn't absolve us from tension. It's not going to eliminate frustration or any of the other emotions, but it is going to give us a space, hopefully, where those emotions can exist gently.
Yeah. Emotions are not wrong. They're just indicators.
Yeah.
When I learned that for myself, it made such a huge difference in my life. That just because I feel this way doesn't mean that I have to remain in this place
Mm-hmm.
all day or, whatever the circumstance was. Uh, I can recognize it and figure out what's it indicating. Why am I feeling this way? How can I change this? People are going to argue with me on like, you have a choice to feel how you feel. I get the argument. I really do. However,
Mm-hmm.
when we recognize things in ourselves, we do have the ability to stop and reflect and really
Mm-hmm.
dig down of uh, to answer some really hard questions sometimes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't want to go down another thing because you and I can talk
Well,
about.
but I think that this is part of our, even just kind of wrapping this episode up,
Yeah.
getting to the space where we have lived under the assumption that something is wrong with me.
Hmm.
What if nothing is wrong with you? It's how we are attempting or seeking to connect to others. And I mean, I attempted on several occasions to try to be a lifeguard. I stand as a very short individual, but yet simultaneously stout. So yes, short and stout, but not a teapot.
I was
I
gonna
know you were. I know you were going there. But in one of the rules that we had in lifeguarding, if you're attempting to save a drowning victim, it is sometimes beneficial to knock that person unconscious because they're only trying to get the very next breath. And they will climb you like a ladder and push you under the water. And now you're in danger.
say. Hmm.
Now, I'm not suggesting that we should use personality process and knock people out. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But it's the idea that, hey, it's not something that's wrong with you. It's finding the anchoring, it's finding the space where you can go, I am, and I'm okay with that.
And this
I'm
is not
empowered by
me.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I won't be driven by my fear.
Yeah.
I won't allow the uncertainty or the unsettlement of X. And we've listed those at the beginning of the episode, and they'll be in the show notes. They'll be in the transcripts available to you. Go ahead, grab some of the context,
Yeah.
visit the assessment, visit our website. We've already empoweryoucoaching.ca. Visit our website and let's talk through. Let's find a way to build a discussion
Hmm.
around what does it mean to be authentically me
Hmm.
while also providing space for people to be authentically themselves.
Yeah. And so just to recap, this week, before we get into the first reflective type next week, is that take a minute, go over this episode again. Yes, as much as we want you to watch it as many times as you like. Seriously, though, is, go through it, listen again to the different types, and identify this week how you show up. If you know right away, I'm definitely reflective. I mean, we're going to go into more detail and you might find that you're actually more supportive, or you do the assessment and you find that out. The point is that this week, do your best to remain as mindful as possible in all kinds of situations, good, bad, exciting, downers. How are you showing up? How are you reacting from an autonomic perspective to situations that we're going to dive into again in future episodes. But having some of that internal story for yourself is going to help you what's the word, absorb some of the things that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks.
Oh,
So
this is so exciting. Like, I
I
mean,
know I'm
yeah,
like
we're itching. We're itching at it.
yeah. So as we wrap up today, did I miss anything there of things
No,
that we
I
want
think
them to? Okay.
we're ready to dive in. I mean,
Yes.
let's
Yeah.
go.
So guys, we just want to thank you this week for being here for our second episode of season 2. And I want to leave you with something this week is I have a personal saying. I say it to all my friends when they're stuck in a place. And I'm saying this now because the next few weeks is really about this for me. If you want to accomplish something that you haven't done before, if you want to see new things in your life that you haven't seen before, go to new heights, you have to be willing to do things that you weren't willing to do before or haven't done before. It's it's a it's a must because in order to go to new heights, you gotta you gotta condition yourself before you can go to the next level of heights, right? And this is what this growth journey is about. So, um, Brett, any closing words before we sign off?
Be authentically yourself.
Yeah,
And don't be afraid. You're
yeah,
not broken.
yeah,
There is a place for you to fit
yeah.
when we have the courage to invite those that cover the limitations that we have.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear any of your stories that you have relating to the things that we're talking about, how you process them, how you experience them. Please share them in the comments. We really look forward to them and responding to them and engaging with you guys. So with that, we're going to sign off this week. Have an awesome week. We love you guys. Thanks so much for your support.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.